All right, after technical difficulties, we are back. So we were talking about the second volunteer student who wants to get involved in the project.
Yes, that's right. So this student has asked us if we can use the focus group data that we collect as part of the project for her dissertation.
Oh, okay.
Now, her dissertation is due at the end of at least somewhere around April of 2015. So this is well before we ourselves analyze the data, clean the data, deposit the data, and so on.
Well, okay. Do you have thoughts on this?
Not necessarily. I can see both sides of the picture, so I'm not. Yeah, I don't have a clear view on it.
Okay, here are my initial thoughts. I generally don't have a problem with it as long as the data that we collect that she uses comes from a question she's come up with herself. So, in other words, I'm not going to come up with a question for her. So, as long as she does have a specific question and it fits within the data collection where it would be easy for us to modify the interview schedule to accommodate her research interests, then yeah, she can basically have access to that as soon as we get it transcribed and anonymized and put out like anybody else would. I don't think, I mean, there's not going to be a huge finding from a master's dissertation that is going to take away from the overall study. I think the important part here would just be to identify very clearly, basically supervise her through the process, which is, okay, think about your question. What data would you need to collect? So what question would you kind of have to ask? And then what are you going to do with that data? So are you going to do narrative analysis? Are you going to do discourse analysis? Are you going to do grounded theory? Where your theoretical influence? Basically you kind of make her do all that stuff, but maybe you just put a spin on another question, like a leadership question or something like that, where we can do a follow-up or a probe that would give her data.
I don't think she's even thinking that far, to tell you the truth. I think, honestly speaking, I think she's unfortunately in a position where she has a question. Sorry, she has a research question, but she has no data to answer that research question, and she doesn't want to change the research question.
Wow.
So I think she probably feels that getting the focus group data will help her get something together. She's not even thinking of adding a question to our focus group.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of how, if we wanted to make any use out of it for her, and for us, that would be one way to approach it. So, I mean, what is the research question again?
I think she's looking at geographical location and political identity.
Okay. Well, I'm open to it, but she's basically, as long as she proves that she's done the theoretical work and is engaging with research design, I mean, I'm happy to help in that process and work
No,
with it.
sorry, I don't think she wants our help in that sense. I mean, obviously, if we can afford it, we can afford to give it to her. She would not refuse, but I don't think she's expecting it. I think
Okay.
all she requires, all she's asked for is access to the data. That's it. She's not
Okay.
asking for any additional advice or supervision or anything.
Okay. I'm just going to move my mic here because I'm wondering if it's picking up the fan noise. But all right. So she wants to help out and have access to our data.
That's it.
Okay. Well, I think that in the course of it, we might be able to give her more experience and more advice, and the other student as well, which is, well, I invite them to watch these videos, and then also about the research design process and how we go about it. Just from them being involved in the project and looking at how we do it, they should get a much better idea on how to do it going forward or going for it themselves. So, okay.
Great. Then I will tell her that that is the case, and that we are obviously very happy to have her participate in the project in whichever way we think she can, and that she would have access to the data in order to do her dissertation. Once we have cleaned the data and anonymized it, and obviously all the other caveats about confidentiality and so on would apply to her.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Great. Okay, then I'll tell her that. So do you want to talk about how you want to have these two students involved in the project?
Let's see. I don't have anything intelligent on that today, but I can, if you have thoughts on how to incorporate them, I will certainly take your thoughts and then maybe give you feedback after I've had time to figure out how it's all going to work with my, the flying and the times and meetings and everything else. So do you have thoughts on what works for you, or should we basically say, let's think about this and discuss it at the next meeting?
I think let's think about it and discuss it at the next meeting. I have a few thoughts, but nothing really well developed.
Okay, good. Me neither. So, but now that we know that they're interested, we can start to pass on little pieces of your responsibility and see how they do. And if it goes well, then more responsibility, more responsibility. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So those are the 2 students. Then in addition to that, I sent emails to 3 other people who I knew were involved with the yes and no campaign in some form, asking them to spread the news about the project among people who they knew were involved, so that we don't have a lot of problems with recruitment.
Okay.
I have heard back from 2 of the 3 people that I contacted. One was involved in the yes campaign, and the other was involved in the no campaign. The person who was involved in the no campaign has assured me that he's going to sit down and write down the names of everyone that he knows who might be interested in the project, and then send them to me so that we can get in touch with them directly. And the
Awesome.
person who was involved, yeah, the person who was involved in the yes campaign has already sent emails out to the people that he was involved with, and I have already got 2 responses.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. So both obviously they were both activists, and they are happy to be involved. They said that they are already free on the 2 days that were identified, and yeah, they're just looking forward to the focus group.
Great, great. And is there any chance that we could, so these are people who are going to come and attend it, correct?
These are people who are going to participate in the focus groups, yes.
Okay. And then we could also do snowballing by asking them if they're aware of other activists who might be interested in getting involved. And do we have any room in the budget for like a bonus? Basically, if you bring, we're looking for women, or we're looking for somebody under the age of 25, or we're looking for, so basically, like, here are all the people we're looking for, and if you can help us, if you know someone like this who is willing to come with you and do the focus group, then we'll give you an extra $5 for bringing your friend along.
Unfortunately, we don't have the extra money in the budget. I mean, the only way we could get the extra money is to cut down on the focus groups that we had planned for the 2016 general election.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can just. These are the free focus groups anyway, right?
Well, this is the thing. I did not expect them to send out the email willy-nilly. So I thought that they would actually just talk to somebody, but they forwarded the email. So I have to get back to the 2 people who expressed their interest and let them know that we would prefer if the activists devoted, their time, donated their time to us rather than being incentivized by monetary concerns. Because we would like that money for ordinary voters and not activists.
Okay. So yeah, let's have we should probably too, have, now that, well, we've got the dates, and when you find out the times of the library and if it's available, and for the Saturday and the Sunday and the times, then we can start to slot the groups in and how many people per group and how much we can get through in 2 days, and kind of assign people to start to slot these people into their possible groups, whether it's the free group or they're a good demographic for doing our yes group that's paid kind of thing.
Yeah, we would need a screening questionnaire, right?
Yes, and I've got that from the last time. So how about because this week I've not really had my mind in QESB so much. I feel like I should be doing some preparatory work that will set up the next meeting. And it sounds like what we need to set up for the next meeting is to look at the structure of the focus groups in terms of, like, well, let's assume that we're going to be in some kind of library. There's going to be 3 of them with so many people, 3 in one day, probably 2 in the other. How are we going to work that in a 90-minute session in terms of slotting it over the course of the day? Because it's great for people to say, I'm free that day, but they don't know what time. And so the sooner we can get them that information, then they can make a firmer commitment. We can slot them into either the donation because you cared about this issue, or I want to get paid group. And yes, and then we can also go back to 2010 and look at the screening questionnaire, look at other information that we want to put into the questionnaire this time, and start getting all of that ready. So I didn't realize it would be having people already signed up. So I guess I'm thinking we've got the whole month of November, and I'm kind of hesitant to get people locked in 6 weeks in advance because they could cancel pretty easily. We need to get the consent forms, the brochures, the screening questionnaire. We basically need to do all the stuff that we did that was for 2010. We need to do for these guys before we can give them anything, really. So other than having the email and the thank you, I think we should probably just wait until we have a package of information ready to go, and then we can send off the package of information and, you know, follow it up with a phone call or something to confirm people's participation.
I think that's fine. I think I told, I emailed them back saying, this is brilliant, we're really happy that you're interested. I will be in touch with more details because you need to fill in certain forms and so on nearer to the date. So that's what I've told them.
Okay.
So it's great that they know that it's happening. They may keep their day free as far as possible, which is what we need anyway. But we haven't committed anything at the moment.
Okay, good. Okay. That's all right. It's a good kind of kick in the butt to pull all that stuff off, dust it off, look at it, and also look at it in light of what we want to do with the 2015 QESB, for instance, with like Peter and me doing that stuff on agency and communion. Do we want to add that in the screening stuff this time, or we want to put it to the next one, that kind of thing. So yeah, I can just start getting my head engaged in all those kinds of questions. But I would imagine that by the middle of November, maybe 1 month out is a good timetable. So sort of around the 13th, 14th of November, we should aim for having the information brochure, the consent form example, and whatever other screening stuff that we want to do. But we can still kind of keep collecting names until that point, and then we'll just send them all of the information at one go, 4 weeks out. They can read it, decide if they want to participate, and if they do, then we will put them into the consideration pile, and then we'll pull from those to get a representative group of participants. If that sounds okay?
That does, yeah.
And it's also after Carnival, so I'll need off, the 11/11 of November. I probably will need the 12th and the 13th off to recover. So.
Okay. I also emailed the university IT section to find out about tripod, and I haven't heard back from them. So I probably will get in touch with them on the phone next week.
Okay. Should we just make an appointment to meet with them? Are we really feasibly going to have time to create a website between the two of you and me, and everything we have to do between now and the end of December, and have a whole PEPS thing ready to go, or do you want to launch it after the data collection, sort of in January time? If you're nodding, I can't hear your nodding, by the way, and you're very small.
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. What was our timeline for the website and the migration and all that? Was it going to be before the end of the year, or had we not made a decision? I can't recall.
I can't recall either. I'll have a quick look.
I guess I'm really tempted to just have like this total Scottish party when I get there, and just have like set up meetings with the IT people on the first day that we're.
But the thing is that December is going to be too late to do anything. The week after the focus groups will be the last week of the term.
Well, that's why I'm thinking that we'll probably launch all the stuff in January anyway, because it's not like we're going to be releasing any of the findings.
Yeah.
Christmas.
And I don't think it will work in January because we get back to teaching on the 19th.
But okay, but what does that have to do with the transfer of the web page?
I don't know who's going to be at work before we get back to people.
Okay. So your goal then would be to try to get some kind of migrated stuff sorted out before the end of November?
I don't think we should rush it. I think if we can't get it,
Okay, so you know, it's just I'm trying to pin you like a timetable down. You're like, no, December is too late, and January is going to be late, and then the November, I don't know. So what do you advise?
I just think that if we have to, let's just use the old website and direct people to the old website and do the migration somewhere between the first event and the 2015 years.
Sorry, you kind of faded out at the end there. Was that you were saying between the first event in Edinburgh?
The first event in Dundee,
Okay.
January, and the 2015 QESB. So I think that gives. I think let's just do it then.
All right. So you want to do it in the spring?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that probably, time-wise, I think that probably works better.
And it also gives the IT department plenty of time to sort it out.
It gives us enough time to coordinate with them, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sehr gut. Okay.
So
All
what
right.
we could
So yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
if when you come in December, we could actually arrange a meeting with our IT officer and perhaps with somebody from the university's IT department, and then set out a timetable for launching something in the spring.
Perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, especially if we are going to hear from the British Academy around British Academy Leverhulme mid-February. Perhaps we could do something in March based on that. So, okay. So we've got student assistance, we've got web page, IT stuff that is also going to be put off until the next year. And we decided we're going to make a decision on the incorporation of the student assistance in the next meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what else do you have on your side, on your plate?
What else? Oh, the only other thing I have is about ethical approval. And
Oh, yeah.
I did not get in touch with her because I don't think that 4 weeks had passed since we submitted the form. I checked the date and actually I was wrong when I mentioned that we submitted it uh, before we heard. Well, okay, I'll rephrase that. I thought that we had submitted it before the end of October, before the end of September, when actually we submitted it on the 3rd of October.
Okay. Okay. So we should hear in November, and if not November, at least the beginning of December.
So we should hear by the first week of November, according to their own deadline.
Okay.
So if I don't hear, so this is what I was going to email them either tomorrow or first thing on Monday.
Okay. Right, because what we got Halloween on tomorrow, and then the 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Yeah. So be next week.
I think that's it on my end. I don't think there was anything.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there was the thing. Sorry. I'm supposed to send the email to the BA contacts that you found about us winning the BET funding. So I haven't done that yet.
Oh, okay. I mean, if we make the first round, then yeah, we can get in touch with them later. If we don't, maybe it probably wouldn't have made any difference. So, yeah. And I guess I don't even know if they'll let us update that information or not. I don't know who Rob's magical contact. I guess I gave you the name of somebody at the British Academy, so yeah. But I'm not so concerned about that. It's a nice star next to it, but it's not going to make or break it, I don't think. So. All right. So yes, those were your items. Okay. The only thing I would want to bring up, and it's all to get the ball rolling, is to start thinking about the interview schedule. And I mentioned that in the letter to our advisory board, proposed advisory board members and our proposed partners, that people should send in questions. And people haven't, but that's okay because we can still send out a reminder near the end of term when we're actually getting closer to the focus groups. But I think it would be useful to have a meeting where we go over the 2010 rough guide to the questionnaire schedule and identify those questions we certainly would want to repeat as benchmarks for the time before the short campaign. And then we can figure out how many empty spaces we have and how we want to use those theoretically to address particular questions about either Scotland or devolution or voting or the independence referendum or whatnot. And maybe we could even try out the tweeting. We talked about the icebreaker with the tweets, the Twitter-friendly PR on that, and it may be worth trying out a few questions, on the groups to see how it goes. So that's the next thing that I figure is the big chunk of planning, is once the physical structure, the locations and food and all that is sorted, and the physical recording equipment, it's what are the questions, what data do we want to get, what is the best way to collect that data, visual, audio, brainstorming, and then what is our planned method of analysis that is informed by our method of collection for how we're going to answer this particular question. So, not a whole lot of work or anything.
Yeah, I think that's. Do you want to do that the next?
No. So I think in the next meeting we're going to have to follow up on precisely what the student, from what are reviewing in my head, and it's actually good because we should watch the video perhaps, watch the last 5 minutes to see what we were going to talk about. So the student assistance in figuring out duties that we can provide to them that will help. Maybe we can think of it a little bit in terms, I'll just throw this out, of an internship. So maybe they should do, well, unless they have time constraints or whatever, but a little bit of everything. So encourage them to watch this video series, but then also ask them to take one of our questions and walk through why we are doing a particular method of analysis and what the data we hope to elicit from the question is and how that's going to tie into a question, or do that themselves, show how they're doing that in their research in some way. And then maybe, sitting in on the focus groups and helping with the monitoring it, maybe they can do the first 10 or 15 minutes of one of the groups, do the transcription to get a feel for what it is like to do transcription, and then go with us, do their own anonymization or practice the principles of anonymization when they do that, so they understand why that's important and how it's applied to the data. So I'm just thinking that instead of giving them, you're the camera person and the sound person and you're going to get the snacks, we try to incorporate them at every stage so they get a little piece of experience from everything that we do. But that requires them to have, time and commitment and want to do that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we can present this to them, but obviously let's talk about it a little bit more next week, than anything. Yeah, and see what they say, because both of them are in their final year of their undergraduate degree. Both of them are doing dissertations, and so it's going to be quite hectic for them already.
Although in December it shouldn't be quite so bad, because they're not having exams yet. And in the spring, when the election's on, that's going to be hellish. They're not going to be able to do anything in May and in June. So it's better to do it now than to wait. So, okay, so yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to discuss maybe preliminarily the interview schedule's general topics, like who's going to pick up. I know you've done a little bit of identifying the questions in the interview schedule, but I feel the pre and the post maybe should both be looked at. So maybe we can divide up some of the old transcripts and just make sure we've read through and identified the main topics, and then in another meeting we can look at the main topics and decide which one. So I think we should do it in stages and not have to do everything in one meeting because it's just too much. And so we can kind of start thinking about non-traditional, what are the Scottish elements, go back to the proposal, what we said we were going to do, and start to try to work those in. And then in the next meeting too, we have the physical stuff, following up on the physical locations that you're going to be doing, and any more correspondence from participants who are interested in doing the focus groups, update. And Yeah, and I'll do the blog, and I still have to write the press release. So I'm going to put it clearly, just putting it on my a notepad in a Dropbox folder wasn't enough. I'm going to have to put it on my schedule. So I'm going to schedule writing the press release for our Carnegie money and everything else, and I think I'm going to do that for next week. So, are you? All right, so I'm going to put it in my phone. So if you have things you want to say, talk while I do this, while I'm thinking about it.
The only thing that I haven't done, which I just kind of suddenly remembered, was getting in touch with the campaigns themselves. So we had the contacts of people from each of the campaigns, and I haven't gotten in touch with them to tell them that we got the money and so forth. And I'm wondering if I should do that.
Well, was that kind of more based off the last proposal and the whole? I'm just kind of wondering how important the campaign people are going to be by December. You know, I think our local networks and recruiting off the streets or recruiting through the email system or snowballing or whatever else is going to be a bit more probably relevant because we moved away from the campaign. So I don't, unless I'm forgetting something important.
Only the about the activists. Maybe it would be good to get some activists that were involved with the campaigns through the campaigns, or
Okay.
maybe till November, mid-November, how we are doing in terms of.
Yeah, there's also, I think, still some people twittering about Scottish independence or whatever else. So there might be, yeah, still some, excuse me, people out and about, knocking about and answering emails. And yeah, I guess the nice thing would be if we had the press release and it was in the newspaper, but we can go ahead and maybe, how about this? Well, if you want to go ahead and get in touch with them, but I can also write up the press release, and maybe if by the time I've written it up and sent it out, and you found time to do this, maybe it'll be picked up somewhere, or we can put it on the QESB website, and the WordPress one, and then put people a link to that in the email so that they'll be able to read about the project and the funding and the questions and everything else. It's not just a spam email kind of thing.
So I'll wait then. I think I'll wait for a couple of weeks while we have the press release and some more clarity on the questions, and then I'll get in touch with the campaign.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Anything we can put off until not next week. Anything that can be not next week is good in my opinion. That was it really. That was just I'd start to think about the interview schedule, theoretic questions, things that we'd want to set up for next time. I mean, like I said, benchmark, and that was. I think right now, for me at least, in terms of my timetable, I'm kind of considering this period of mostly technical organization for PEPs in terms of like the location and a plan and a strategy and the preparation of the paperwork, but in terms of jumping into it quite deeply theoretically, in my head I've sort of pegged that for more closer to the end of November, beginning of December, when we're really looking at the focus groups. So I'm not in a huge hurry to get the interview schedule determined 6 weeks out, because who knows what's going to happen. But we know enough about the former studies to know that there's going to be a lot of retention. So I'm trying to balance out that bringing new stuff in and repeating old stuff, but and also doing it in a time where it makes sense in the process of our research design to ask those questions and set them in stone. So I'm a little bit tired.
Maybe for next week, then we can also discuss two things. One is the events, to public events. If we want to get looms and so on, what do we want to do? Maybe have some preliminary brainstorming about that.
Okay.
And the second thing is, I'm wondering whether your idea of the interviews might be possible in this case, and whether we want to do that. So your idea where at the end of the focus group we ask people if they would be interested in more in-depth interviews um, about the topic, where we can actually pick people up and then probe their understanding and their opinions a little bit more, and whether we should try that out in this project.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. definitely. Yeah, and we can, do those on the phone or in person if they're willing to come by and have a chat in your office or something else. So, yeah, it won't hurt. They can just say no. And
Yeah.
if we get a bit more data out of it and a little bit more context and personalization for a few of the cases, I think, yeah, we should add that to probably like a standard thing for the study itself. As a general practice to always ask people, hey, if you had a good time, would you mind giving us an hour if we wanted to follow up with specific things?
Yeah.
That sounds good. So yes, next time too, I'm just kind of focused on the focus groups, but you're right, we need to think past them in terms of the timetable and start looking into booking dates and locations for those events. So yeah, we can add that to the to-do list.
I got a very nice response back from the person who had uh, booked the room for the Edinburgh event, Gordon, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember Gordon. Very nice guy.
Very nice guy. He sent a very. I sent him an apologetic email for the delay in getting back to him, and he was very sweet in responding back. So hopefully we will still be able to use that room, book the room, and now definitely book it. Yeah, not leave him hanging. Uh,
Yes.
so yeah, so we haven't burnt that bridge. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully the rates won't go up too much between when we last booked and when we'll next book. So, all right, I'm running out of things I needed to ask you about or talk to you about.
I think we've covered everything for now.
Okay, good. It feels like we've exhausted it, and there are other things that I didn't, good stuff from like the student assistants that I didn't know about. So this is always very useful. Yeah, so I'm going to watch the video again and write down a list of all the things that we said we were going to talk about in the next meeting so that I can organize for our next meeting.
I made a list, so it will be updated on Dropbox.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I should probably let you get on. I guess we'll go off as the live air and do a closing. Yeah, to anyone watching, the next time in our process, we're going to be dealing more with the students and the technical stuff and thinking about balancing both research and event planning. It'll be also exciting. So since Dia did the opening, I guess I'm doing technically the closing. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and thank you to Dia for being awesome. Okay, so stop broadcast. Bye.